Okay, creative crunch. So someone gave you harsh feedback and it hurts. Being a creative, you put your heart on the line, and sharing your work is something that you do. And it's likely that you've experienced being given feedback that hurts. Now, creative hearts, they're a little bit sensitive. And, it can be a bit like a child picking a flower and holding it in their hand to give to an adult. And the adult takes it and stomps on it. Right? It's a bit like that when we share our creative work. It's this moment of vulnerability, and sometimes it's innocence, and we're offering. And then sometimes the offer gets rejected. And the impact that this has is ultimately up to you. So we can perceive it as being painful, and let's reframe that. It can be painful, right? But what we can do with our beliefs is we can help to work through the pain. And on top of that, with our presence with the pain, we can work through that. So I'm going to talk more about that. And we're going to have a look at why you have the power when it comes to that feedback. But first you have to be aware of the pain, right? It's this, the awareness can bring the healing, right? So here's the story. I was 11 years old in art class, and we were doing pencil drawings, and we were drawing trees. And I'd drawn my tree, and I took it up to the art teacher. His name was Brother James. And he looked at it, and he said to me, "What's that?" And I say, "It's my tree." And he looked at it and he went, "Pfft," and gave it back to me, and he said, "Trees aren't ice creams. Go draw it again." And in that moment, my little sensitive artist was crushed. And something that also happened was my creative innocence was gone forever. Like in that moment. And I'm sure you've probably had a moment like that with your creativity, where there's the childlike innocence and being lost in the fun and the immersion of creating, and then something's happened. And I remember that moment. And yeah, if you can relate, feel free to write in the comments. It'd be great to hear what your experience is, if you had an experience of losing that creative innocence like that. And a question for you to consider is, was he an angel or was he a devil in that moment? Because that's what our brains can do. We go into this definitive good, bad, horrible, fantastic. So a little question is, do you perceive that person as an angel or a devil? And when you share your creative work and someone criticizes it, it can be like a dagger to the heart. Hey Maddie, hey Galinda. And that dagger to the heart can send you off your path for days, weeks, months, years, decades. Like literally, I talk to people every week who something like that has happened to them, and they've gone off their creative path, and it's fearful for them to keep sharing their work. And yeah, I understand. It's happened many times in my creative life that the more I share, the more I get criticized. So we're going to talk about some strategies for that. So it's common to have a lot of fear around being seen as a creative and sharing the work and moving forward with a creative career, or even if you're just doing creativity as a hobby, like just something that you love to do, right? And I guess I do creativity because I love it, but it's also got to the point where it brings an income too. Hi Amanda, Mandala, and Maddie Rogers writing there, a messenger for growth. Keep sharing those insights. Love hearing them. So that pain of that creative criticism can literally shut people down for a lifetime. And what doesn't go though is the longing, and that's still in you. So if you're saying I'm not creative, I challenge you and say that you were born creative, and it's still there. So even if you don't stop creating, your heart can still hurt from that feedback. And as you go along, if you haven't healed that hurt, it'll come up again. And So coming back to that question about when someone gives you harsh feedback, are they angel or devil? And of course it depends on your perspective, because your perspectives and your beliefs create your experience. So let's look at a cycle that can happen when we get harsh feedback. So you share your creative work, be it painting, a garden, like you've created a garden, or a drawing, or a design, or you're knitting, or photography, and then you receive feedback that is perceived as negative. There can be a cycle that we go through when that happens. So initially, we can go, oh, that got me. And then the rational mind comes in like, oh, it's okay, it's just a comment, it's just one person's opinion. It doesn't mean I'm crap, it's just their opinion. But then the echo can be a bit like then the comment can be a little bit like an echo in a canyon, and it keeps bouncing back to us. It's like, oh, why is that not going away? Why is that sticking? You know, it can even happen when we've had lots of fantastic comments, but there's just one little piece of feedback, and it's perceived as negative, and that inner artist of ours can be like, oh, that hurts. And so what we don't, and you sharing your creative gifts, it's really important. It's important for your heart, and it's important for other people's hearts. And that echo, we want to work with that. So one is the insight for the past. So for example, for me personally, I can look at that moment where the artist felt, the little young artist me felt squashed, right? However, what I did was I pretty much gave up drawing. What I could have done is used it as inspiration to draw better trees. But we're going to come back to that. So there's a cycle, right? The rational mind goes, it's okay, but then it still hurts, right? And that hurt still sits there. So what can happen is, as we go through this cycle, one of the things is that we collapse with self-loathing, right? I'm crap. How stupid can I be? I'll never get good at this. I'm wasting my time, right? And it's all here. It's all pushing down. Something else that can happen, and it can be like this little dance, right? One of these things can be in, one can be out, and it can be saying that, you know, the dance can be between self-loathing and anger. So the anger can be there and be like, who are you to speak to me like that? What do you know about me? So we're going to explore that bit too. And then the urge to quit can come too. I should give up. I'm wasting my time. So eventually, if you stay with this process and don't quit, and you process it well, you're going to come out the other side, and you're going to come out a better artist, a better creative, a better person, someone with more experience in how to manage your emotions, how to manage your beliefs, and be able to keep growing. So here's some strategies to speed up the process. And you know, it's great to be able to get strategies, so that, you know, which is what I do with one-to-one clients. Like, let's look at this. What's this perspective? How can we shift this? And so, because the idea is you evolve. So here's some strategies to speed up that process so you can keep evolving as an artist, as a creative, as a person with a vision that you have for yourself. So number one is recognize that this pain you're going through is so you can be more able to share your creative work. Right? If you work through this well, what will happen is it equips you for the next level. Okay. If you don't work through it well, you're going to keep striking this barrier that's going to be trying to stop you. Another thing is the person who gave you the criticism. What is their area of expertise in this? So often we get criticism from people who actually have a little bit of resentment there. And their criticism isn't a place of growth, like wanting you to grow. It's a resentment that you're doing it and they're not, or that they gave up, or there's something there sometimes, and that what they're actually flinging at you like a chimpanzee in a zoo, like throwing shit at people. That's what they're doing, right? They're throwing shit at you, and it's their shit, not yours. So learning that and going through the process, and if you manage it well, it gets easier, right? So If they're not in the game of creating the way that you create and sharing the way that you share, are they really in a position to be able to pass judgment on you? And I would say no. And generally what I find is the people that are in the game with you, they know what it's like. And they're amazed at your abilities. And that it's this shared collaboration and helping each other move forward. So often it's people that aren't there that are criticizing. So third one, knowing in advance what criticism you might get, that helps. So if I'm putting a song out there, I know that I might get criticism for my voice, I might get criticism for the song, and knowing that criticism will come, okay, I can process it It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt though, right? But it's the ability to sit with that pain and be able to process it and see what the gifts are that will help it move on. Just going to read some of the comments that we've got here. So Matty Rogers says, once you can understand that it's generally a trigger, it's really about what you choose to do with it. And he also said that he had a moment last week. It wasn't music related, but very similar. Meditated on it and ended up having nothing but gratitude for the person as an opportunity for you to grow. It's not about what they say, it's really about moving through the pain of your own lack of self-belief. I'm smiling, Matty, because I love it. I'm going to read that bit again. It's not about what they say, it's really about moving through the pain of your own lack of self-belief. It's great to take constructive feedback, but generally I believe it's about testing a spirituality. And Christy says, I've had several creative moments that were criticized that crippled that desire to want to create many times, so I've withheld. Thanks for sharing, Christy. I appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, hopefully get to see you sharing some of your creativity. So the third one was know what criticism you'll get, right? It helps to know what people might say and have processed some of that before it comes. And I'll tell you what, once you've processed it, you might get that criticism again and it might not hurt at all, or you might process it really, really quickly, right? So number 4 is feeling like you have failed is a necessary and complementary important part of the growth process. Right? If you're not trying things, you're not failing. Well, let's say if you're not trying, you're failing because you're not trying. But if you are trying things and there's failing, it means you're expanding. It means you're pushing yourself. It means you're growing, and you'll actually be more interested. And sometimes that really does hurt, right? That there's this sense of failure. So the strategy there is be like the phoenix, right? You all have the phoenix inside of you, and it takes courage to let that phoenix come back out, right? But you can do it. It's hurt, and you can retreat, you can process, right? Journaling's amazing, but let that phoenix come out, because the phoenix is a gift. The 5th point and strategy that you can use is connect with your purpose. Why are you sharing this work? Why do you do this work? Why not just have your art on your walls at home and not show anybody else? Why not just play your songs for you? Why not just record your songs for you and not share them? Right? If you connect with your purpose, it can actually give you more conviction to keep going. And something that helps me sometimes is actually having the anger. It's like, you know what? You. Who are you to tell me, right? And often that process then leads to, okay, what is the genuine feedback this person is telling me? Because sometimes I can perceive them as a devil, but they're an angel who is actually saying, hey, you need to work on this so you can be what you want to be. And it's not about ego, it's about giving the gift of you and being immersed in that, like that child. Right? The child before his art got squashed. Right? That flower got crushed. So we can perceive that person as an angel, and their job is to inspire us and teach us how to be at the level that we're at. Okay, a little side note is that the more you've been receiving the gifts of your work, the less likely you are to crumble with the perceived harsh feedback. So for example, if you have been releasing a lot of art and receiving feedback or internal feedback that you're on the right path, when that little nudge comes from somebody, it can actually make you feel more self-assured. And something like that happened to me last week. I got a message from somebody saying that I was a charlatan and a fake. And my process was, you know what? Actually, I help people every day. You don't know what you're talking about. And if I hadn't have been helping people every day and doing the work that I've been doing, it might have hurt. But it actually was just like, no, you're over there. That's your boundary over there. So the more you do your work, the less likely the harsh feedback is to hurt, because you're going to be receiving the benefits. So, of course, the way to get really good at navigating this thing is to have one-on-one support, which, obviously that's what I do and that's what I love doing. And if you are interested in exploring how we can work together and how I can support you to create what you want to create, there's a link in the comments box. And if you've been thinking about it or you've been seeing my posts and it's got you curious, I really encourage you to click on the link and let's have a chat, because the gift of you is really important. And I had to learn that the hard way for myself, and I love helping people give the gifts of themselves. So I encourage you to click the link. The more you put yourself out there, the more you'll be criticized. It's a given. So for example, let's take Tones and she has that song Dance Monkey, right? I remember seeing her busking in Byron Bay. She was amazing on the street, pre becoming a worldwide phenomenon. She would have so many critics now, right? And all she's doing is the exact same things that she was doing on the streets of Byron Bay, but she's doing it better than ever before. So the more you put yourself out there, the more you're going to get criticism. But I'd like to remind you, you're actually doing it better than you've ever done before. So we get criticism. Some people freeze, some people give up, some people process, learn and grow. I encourage you to be that third person. Process, learn and grow. I'll go through those 5 strategies just to finish up. Recognize the pain you're going through is a gift, so you can grow. Be aware if that person that is giving that criticism is actually in the arena like you are. Brené Brown uses the term being in the arena. If they're not in the arena, who are they to judge you? 3, be aware of what criticism might come in advance. So then when it does come, you're like, okay, got that. 4, be aware that the criticism might be fair enough and they might actually be an angel sent to you to help you to create the way you want to create. And that's happened to me before. That someone basically told me my singing sucked and that the guy that I was playing music with, Ryan Gittos, should go on his own and dump me. That hurt. But what it did was I went through that process of the anger and the self-loathing and came out the other side where it's like, actually, that guy was an angel. I actually need to work on my singing so that I can be at the level that I want to be at. So number 4, feeling like you have failed is necessary. Be the phoenix. Like, experience it, process it, be the phoenix, come out bigger, stronger, and more confident in the gifts that you have to give. And the last one was connect with your purpose. Why are you doing this work? Right? Why are you doing this creative work? It's really important. So we'd love to hear your insights from this week's video. Thanks, Maddie, for the great comment. And yeah, it's an honor to come and share these videos with you. And the connection call link is in the comments if you're curious what it'd be like to work together and how we can move you forward with what you want to do. Click on the link and let's have a chat. Sending my love, and next week I'll be coming to you from the Northern Rivers, which is in the north coast of New South Wales in Australia, and I'll be up there for a couple of weeks. And yeah, sending my love, and thanks for tuning in this week. See ya.